In Black Clover, we see some of the most versatile and powerful spells when it comes to creation magic. In most cases, we saw mages that used creation magic that got them out of a dire situation. For example, Yuna using Wind Spirit creation magic, which created a sword that can harm devils, which is Spirit of Zephyr. Another example, when Noelle was fighting Elf-possessed Latal, she used water creation magic, Valkyrie armor, and that spell allowed her to win that changed the whole tide of the battle. Creation magic is so special and unique to the user. Every mage has the potential to use creation magic, but we have not seen every mage use creation magic. Now, we have seen characters that can use magic spells without using the power of their grimoires. However, when it comes to creation magic, every mage that have used creation magic has one thing in common. The requirement of forming creation magic is through the source of your grimoire. And we know a character like Asta, who has no magic and can't even read his grimoire, is it still possible for him to use creation magic in a way of anti-creation magic, making forms and shapes of his power? And that's what we're about to get into. So guys, remember to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying the Black Clover content on the channel, and also subscribe if you are new. Now, let's get started. Now, we have come a long way of Asta using his devil transformations, where at one point he had to hold his sword a certain way by concentrating on his ki, allowing the anti-magic flow through the swords and also his body, which allowed him to transform. But obviously now, Asta does not need to hold one of his anti-magic swords just for him to transform or to emit his anti-magic upon it, because now he has an entire arm that is Liebe's that is full of anti-magic. In this situation, even though Asta was already transformed, but with his devil arm, he was able to grab Yami's katana, which was not an anti-magic sword, but with his devil arm, it became one by infusing anti-magic upon the sword. Which means at this point, Asta can literally make any weapon he touches with his devil arm infused with anti-magic. And now, with Devil Union, the possibilities are endless. Asta's entire body is fused with anti-magic, which I'm glad now we can say that Asta officially has anti-magic armor. Because I remember long ago when I made a theory video about Asta having anti-magic armor, a lot of people did not seem to gel with that video. They didn't want Asta to have anti-magic armor at all. And look where we're at now. However, with this form, he is limited. It only lasts for 5 minutes, but I believe with this Devil Union mode, in the words of Noct, Asta can be the strongest. And now that Asta is working with his Devil Liebe, hand in hand, this is a huge deal to the untapped potential that Asta can really bring out. And Liebe is the key of this. Main reason why is because since Liebe is a devil from the Underworld, he already knows the language of devils. We saw in chapter 202, when Zagreus obtained Patri's 4-leaf Clover Grimoire, made him fall into despair and became a 5-leaf, the words on the Grimoire became devil language. With the Grimoire, Zagreus was able to obtain the full power of his word soul magic, which allowed him to summon spells from the Underworld. Zagreus showed us the full nature and the power of someone who is using a 5-leaf Clover Grimoire that can summon spells if they can read the devil language. Asta tried to show Julius his grimoire and asked him can he read it, but Julius couldn't. But now we know that Asta and Liebe are working hand in hand, and we know that Liebe is from the Underworld, which more than likely he knows the devil language as well. He can show Asta how to read this language, and they can both figure out together how to use new powerful spells that are within the grimoire. And as we already explained earlier, the way to use creation magic, the source of that power comes from the grimoire. Asta has yet to use the abilities of his grimoire, and now with Liebe, he'll be able to obtain the power of creation magic, but more so in his own way, anti-creation magic. And it's not too far-fetched to say because Asta has already shown signs within the story that he can use anti-creation magic. In the guidebooks, Tabata gave us a description on how creation magic works within the series. It's stated to create objects in any situation. Objects such as weapons and protective gear can be created with magic with each attribute. However, since Asta doesn't have a magic attribute, it doesn't rule out the fact that Asta can create weapons and protective gear, which can be used for his anti-magic. When we saw Yuno perform this spell, Wind Spirit Creation Magic, Spirit of Zephyr, created a sword that can do damage to a devil, Asta immediately right after used anti-magic Demon Slayer sword, Black Divider, which in a way Asta created and extended the shape of his Demon Slayer sword with using his anti-magic powers. The way that Tabata described creation magic in the guidebooks, Asta's anti-magic spell, Black Divider, fits the description. He surrounded his sword with more anti-magic protection and also extended the sword with more anti-magic power. And during the beginning of the time skip, we saw how Asta has gotten so skilled with Black Divider, the sword extended even further to the point where it sliced a magic fortress, and we also saw him take down an ancient demon with Black Divider. And Asta, with his devil arm, allow him to grab any weapon and infuse it with anti-magic. I believe with just this arm alone, he's able to create even his own sword. During the battle between Dante versus Asta and Yami, Dante exposed a huge weakness about Asta. If you can take away the swords from Asta, there's nothing he can really do to you, and that's what Dante was doing during their fight. Asta kept calling his swords and Dante kept taking them away from him. Yami started to notice this, and that's why he threw his katana at Asta just for a chance so Asta can get in close to cut Dante and they can win the fight. What's stopping Dante from doing this again with his body magic? We already know the inevitable. Asta and Dante are going to have their rematch. They're going to fight again. Asta is much stronger at this point, but also Dante. Plus, on top of the fact that he got an extra boost from Morris, which made his body magic more efficient, now that he can use 100% of his devil powers, we know that the devil powers also increase their own original inherent magic powers. So Dante's body magic is going to be stronger than ever before. And if Asta using Devil Union mode, he only has 5 minutes. What can he do in those 5 minutes if Dante uses body magic and steals all the swords again and take them away from the battlefield? Asta will have no choice but to create his own variation of weapons with anti-magic. So if Asta had no choice but to create anti-creation magic, what kind of weapons would they be? When Asta was fighting Dante, we saw that he was leaking with so much anti-magic power that his sword started to become light black anti-magic whips. When I saw that, it definitely put me in the mind of Patri's light creation magic spell, which was light creation magic, light whip of judgment, which I can definitely see Asta using with his anti-magic power. He can create something like that because we already see him do something similar to that when he was in rage mode, but this time it'll be more controlled. Fonzel, who also trained Asta, was able to create Wind Creation Magic, Emperor of the Slashing Winds. He was able to perform and create a sword out of a stick. If Fonzel can do something like that so simple, more than likely I strongly believe that Asta will be able to do the same. Asta even said that all the magic swordsmen that he had fought with, he had learned from them, and this was proof that Asta has a tendency of seeing things he likes and even tries to recreate things his own way. He saw the way that Yami performed death thrust and did the exact same thing against Liebe. However, we already know Asta did this without using any form of anti-magic, but I believe that this is heavily foreshadowed that Asta will perform something like this again, but with this time, it will be with anti-magic. We also saw how Asta was able to use Black Slash with the Demon Dweller sword, and we know that that move is a direct reference to Licht when he used that same attack against Yuno and Asta. So since we already know that Asta is inspired by the way that certain swordsmen fight, Asta can also be inspired by the way that Fonzel used his wind creation magic, and even Yuno when Yuno uses Spirit of Zephyr. With Asta using Devil Union, there is so much to his power that he can tap into with the help of Liebe. The possibilities of his anti-magic power is endless. Now, besides creation magic, I did make a theory video about Asta's Devil Union mode and the possible powers we could see. That's not talking about creation magic, but more so different parts of his abilities. So if you guys want to check that video out, I will leave a card up on the top right hand corner. So yes, I strongly believe that Asta in the future will be able to learn anti-creation magic with the help of Liebe. And speaking of creation, why don't you create the subscribe button, turning it from red to gray by subscribing to the channel with notification bells on. You guys have an awesome life. Take care of yourselves. Stay blessed, and I'm out.